Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Other Art Fair London. My name is Erin Remington, and I am Assistant Curator and Art Advisor at Saatchi Art. For those who aren't familiar with the Other Art Fair and the Saatchi Art, the Other Art Fair was started 10 years ago and started in the UK, and in 2016 was when the partnership with Saatchi Art began. The Other Art Fair has grown with outside of just the UK and has gone to other places, including Sydney, Melbourne, Brooklyn, Chicago, Dallas, and Los Angeles. With everything that's been happening this past year, there has not been in-person fairs, but lucky for anyone who is in London, this weekend will be the first in-person fair in the UK since COVID. And with things opening back up, going to a fair is a great way to meet new artists and find exciting new pieces to maybe add to your collection. So today I will be showing you 5 artists not to miss while you're at the fair, whether virtually or in person. So here is our lovely entrance to our virtual fair. So if you have a chance, if you aren't in London and you have a chance to check out all of our amazing artists, this is what it'll look like virtually. So first, we're going to start with Ernesto Romano. Ernesto Romano is an Italian artist living and working in London since 2010. He studied architecture in Venice, but has been working as an artist since 2008. This is what the inside of our virtual fair looks like. You'll see on the left-hand side of the screen a little video that Ernesto has created, talking a little bit more about his art practice. You're able to chat with the artist, schedule a time to meet with them. These are all really great features to use if you're not able to visit in person. Here is looking at his booth head on. And when you go in person, if you have the chance to, you'll be able to see these works also in person, but here is just the digital display. Ernesto uses X-rays of his own body for his works, and then he transforms them with these bold, beautiful colors, and then sometimes embellishing them with gold leaf, glitter, spray paint, or crystals. I was personally drawn to his color palette and how playful the juxtaposition between almost like this death-like image or X-ray with such vibrant colors. And Ernesto explains that he likes to use these status symbols of a crown and a jewel and use it with an X-ray because an X-ray is the one type of photo that you don't get any gender, race, class. It's completely ambiguous of who the individual is. And he feels that this brings a message of equality and values and inclusion and diversity. One piece I wanted to highlight was the importance of being earnest, crowned. I just thought it was a fun spin off of the iconic UK first class stamp, which traditionally has the Queen on it. And he uses this X-ray of the profile of the Queen combined with, his text overlay and adding the different elements of the crown and just adding his own spin onto it. And another work I wanted to point out is In the Eye of the Beholder Rose. This was a really beautiful piece. It is a combination of a blue eye and of a cherry blossom. So he puts those 2 layers together and it creates, this really ombre pastel-like version of an eye that's really beautiful, but he also explains it as kind of feeling otherworldly, like it could be a galaxy, it could be a nebula, or you could just see an eye. So there's just a lot of different ways to interpret it. So thank you, Ernesto, for being a part of the fair. And if you have a chance, go and check out his booth. I have the booth numbers on the left-hand side here as well. And with our second artist, Evie Meehan, she is a Polish artist, interior designer, and an architect who now lives in London. Most of her artworks have this geometrical feel, and it's no surprise for me to find out that she has a background in interior design and architecture, because that is a theme that you will see within her works. And she really focuses on formal elements of color, line, and shape to not just depict the physical world around her, but to abstract it and create her own narrative around it. Here's another view of her booth. Really great sizes that are super, they could be used, in many different places of a home. I love that they are not too imposing, but really beautiful colors. Let's go to her first work here, Awaiting 3. This work is inspired by contemporary architecture, which you can see here. You see a building on the left and these shapes and lines that are running perpendicular and parallel with each other. She focuses on abstract realities by exaggerating or simplifying the surrounding and focusing on lines and shapes, as well as playing with colors here. So it's not just a building, and it's not just abstraction of form and line and shape. It's bringing those things together to create this scene that is just really crisp, beautiful, clean lines, but really livened up with the color palette that she uses. Okay, second work is Awaiting 4. I love this work. I love the color palette that she uses. There's these beautiful tangerines and pinks juxtaposed by the blue background behind her. And she uses color to capture reflections and refractions and shards of light. You can see in this piece right here, it's almost like a beam of light is coming through, and it's contrasting with these different layers. It could almost be like a multi-layered home. It really allows your mind to almost fill in the gaps of a puzzle of where the pieces of the building are and where they aren't. So thank you, Evie, for being part of the fair. Next up, we have Beth Blackburn, or as titled, I Make Shapes. Beth Blackburn is a 43-year-old artist and single mother of 2 teenagers and a dog. She has been making sculptures for over 20 years. And while she was in university, she studied 3-dimensional design and specialized in ceramics. I was immediately drawn to Beth's sculptures. I love the ambiguous shapes. It reminds me of Barbara Hepworth, and just this really tactile, you can almost feel her hands coming around the sculptures herself. So if you are able to visit the fair in person, you're lucky because you'd be able to see the sculptures in real life and not just the image. So they are these beautiful, clean, white and natural tones. She explains that making these pieces are a very personal in a way of her processing life. She also is a teacher, and she teaches a pottery class, and she draws a lot of inspiration from teaching as well. And she speaks of how emotional and interconnected it is with creating these works of pushing and pulling the clay, making some movements in the clay, and then leaving it for a couple weeks and then coming back to it and just reworking over and over and over on these pieces. The first piece here, Pirouette, this is a larger piece. She made this last year. It's sized over 2 feet in height and width. And it's a very expressive, experimental, spontaneous piece. And when you are firing this type of clay, you're never going to get a smooth appearance. It's called a grogged crank clay. And so it's hard to know for her as an artist to know how it's going to turn out. But you get these imperfections of just accepting the beauty as it is. It's not going to have that smooth marble-like appearance. It has a little bit of like a porous texture, and you can see the different variations and tones. So I love how she titled it Pirouette, because it is like a dance. It's her ebbing and flowing with this sculpture. The second piece, Complicated One. This is a piece that Beth had created in 2 different coils that she combined together, 2 halves. And it's a piece that she talks about, like, that she really reworked and reworked and reworked, would work on it and then step away and then come back. And just, this complicated process of internally working within herself and then letting that be shown in this sculptural piece. The next artist we have is Patrick Morales Lee. Patrick is a figurative artist living in Whitstable, Kent, with his wife and 2 daughters. He works within drawing, exploring themes of identity and belief. I really was drawn to Patrick's works. I am very partial to figurative works. Here's a better view of seeing his whole booth. Patrick speaks of these, excuse me, his works are like stilled snapshots of his thoughts towards belief and belonging. He speaks candidly about how he was fostered as a young child and was very aware of molding himself and trying to create a sense of belonging in his childhood. And so that's themes that he is exploring within his arts. He describes or he uses the figures in the paintings are friends or family or models, and he uses them almost as a prop, not trying to get exact likeness of them, but using them as a conduit or as a means to create the message that he's trying to get out. His works are a mix of drawing and painting. He also uses pencil and charcoal as well. The first work, Crowning, interesting enough, I didn't know this when I first was drawn to his works, but many of his paintings are inspired by religious movements and cults. He's very fascinated by what draws people to these different ways of living and to confine themselves to certain rules and expectations and wanting to find belonging, kind of circling it back to his own childhood. And I just love this piece here because you see this woman seated looking at you straight on, and another figure below, and the title Crowning, it all brings it back to that almost ceremonial moment. And once you find out that he is inspired by cults and religious movements, it really makes sense. And the second piece is by Labro. Sorry, I hope I'm saying that correctly. This work I loved, with this beautiful collar that the figure has. Again, speaking to another time and era, perhaps a different cultural group, and just this idea of belonging. And the figure's eyes are taken away and done in charcoal, and so you try to feel connected with the figure, but there is this veil in between, and the really detailed face that is then juxtaposed with almost a simplistic but still understanding of some sort of like cloak and hand and collar in a more simple manner. So I love how he combines the super realistic to a more simple approach, and his color palette is really beautiful. And then finally, our last artist here is James Roper. James Roper is a multidisciplinary artist from Manchester. He used this form of digital collage to create his compositions, which then he finishes oil on canvas. He is inspired by forms within nature and Baroque art. Here's a better close-up of his booth. He has the original paintings as well as some prints he has of the works. They're very detailed paintings. So if you aren't able to afford some of his originals, the limited edition prints are a really great option as well. Metanoia 7, starting here, he describes as a transitional state between new and old modes of being, suspended in this void amid uncertainty and formation. And you get this state of limbo, and it is this really realistic, almost cloth-like movement, and you're really brought into this scene, and the colors are very bright and vibrant. Second piece, Emergence. You can see James' inspiration by the Baroque here, as he talks about being inspired by the artist Bernini, a famous sculpture artist, and the way that he depicts the flowing of fabrics and the human form is really seen also in his painting here, the many folds, and it feels like you can just take your hand out and grab one of these pieces of fabric, similar to a Bernini sculpture, if you are familiar with his works as well. I loved this piece because it has this otherworldly, lights of rays of beams coming in, and he's a super skilled artist. You can tell by his brushwork and his attention to detail. He is definitely an artist worth visiting while you're there, because his works are even more beautiful in person. So that wraps up all 5 of my artists that I wanted to share with you guys today. Again, my name is Erin. I am a curator at Saatchi Art. If you have any questions at all from anything in this tour, please feel free to email at curator@saatchiart.com. And if you have any interest in our art advisory program with Saatchi Art, there is the link below that you can contact us. All right, thanks so much.